I'm here with Steve Gibson. Steve is a former policeman serving in New Zealand and Australia. Steve is now serving the people of Hastings as a first-term elected councillor on the Hastings District Council. I'm chatting with him today about what he's found in his council regarding the amount of Māori activities that he's expected to participate in at work, and because of a social media post where he shared from a family in his constituency who contacted him. They were concerned about the number of times a day their young child was expected to participate in Māori prayer. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, Penny. Happy to be on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. Now, you've touched on a really hot topic, and I think you were probably a little bit surprised that your Facebook post went as viral as it did. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me about your role on the council.
So 12 months ago, I wasn't even on Facebook. But yeah, so I joined, I ran for council, ran for mayor, and within, I must have been about 3 weeks of being on council, we stumbled across an exhibition in the art gallery where the New Zealand flag was laid on the ground with the scribbling, "Please walk on me." And so, of course, I went and protested strongly to the council, to the mayor and the CEO, asking for it to be removed, or at the very least put a barrier arm up in front to stop people physically walking on the flag, because the art gallery staff were essentially encouraging people to walk on the flag the way it was displaced. That created a big furore, and I guess that's where it's all started from. And it wasn't why I joined council, but it was the wokeism that's crept in. Well, it hasn't crept in, it's obviously been there for a while, but it's just on steroids at our council. Then after our third pōwhiri at a marae, within 3 months, I said, enough's enough, I'm not doing this. It was a council meeting that excluded the public, and they paid $2,500 for the marae to host it when we could have had it at the council buildings. We're in a cost of living crisis, right? So, I was a little bit upset about that. So I thought, well, the only thing I can do is boycott, and I'll vote with my feet, and I won't attend. I'm not doing this anymore. This is not why I joined the council. And then just recently, a member of the public let me know that their child at 10 started a new intermediate school. I'm not going to say where it is. And they have to have 5 karakia a day. And I thought, gosh, this is just like our council. On a full council meeting, we have 5 karakia a day. 2 in the morning for the workshop meetings, 1 before lunch, and then another 2 karakias at the full council meeting in the afternoon. And this kid has got to stand up. The entire class have to stand up and recite the karakia. So she got a copy of the karakia and took it home to her parents. Lo and behold, they'd interpret it, and it was to the god of Tangaroa, which is the god of the sea, or Maori god of the forest, Tana Mahuta, and another god of the stars or heavens or something. And it was all these Maori gods that she was expected to worship and pray, because a karakia is a prayer. And she was expected to pray for these 5 times a day. It was like we're in Iran, where they're praying every 2 hours. It's call to prayer, yeah, right. So it's just out of control.
So just to be clear, the school that this child was at was not a Maori immersion school, right? It was a standard state school?
It's a standard state school paid by the taxpayer, and we were supposed to be secular. There's a good reason for that, is because everybody's got different religions. Christians don't like praying to Maori gods, whether they're Maori or Pākehā, it doesn't really matter. It just, it really grates us. It grates me to be praying to someone else's God. If you don't know what you're saying in a language you don't understand, you don't know what you're praying to.
No, and I mean, it's not just Christians that are upset by this. I mean, atheists, anyone of a different religion as well, the Muslims, they'd be really upset by this. So it is, it's a common sense conversation that needs to be had. And if we have this conversation, particularly if we're not of certain colour, then we aren't allowed to have this conversation, supposedly. And that just needs to stop. I mean, I'm currently in the UK at the moment, and I'm trying to get my head around the result of the mass migration situation here and what it's done to the culture of the nation. And I'm here with my family, and they say, they don't even know what their culture is anymore. They didn't stand up for it soon enough, and now it's been watered down. So, it's not just the Māori culture that's doing that. It's a global push to basically, I think, eradicate Christianity and, our culture, our livelihoods and our beliefs. So what was the feedback that you got online as far as support around posting about the school situation versus hate about it?
Well, exactly. I mean, all we were saying is that is 5 karakia, that was the question. Is it satisfactory and is it within the Bill of Rights? Well, I would say clearly it's not. If you're imposing something on a child, and this poor parent had to ask numerous times of the board and the principal to have his daughter excused. I mean, that's not acceptable, and it shouldn't even be happening in the first place. So all these other children, I mean, unless their parents have signed saying yes, we wish our child to participate in this religion, and I can guarantee that hasn't happened. Well, I know that hasn't happened because the parent told me.
Mm.
It's just, it's not about being anti-Maori, and that's the thing. We got trolled, and instantly I'm a racist because I asked the question. Because I'm a white male, I identify as a New Zealander. I don't identify as Maori or Pākehā, but I'm instantly a racist as soon as you ask a question. That's how. It's just ignorance. It says more about them than it does about me. That's for sure.
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, I get called a racist every time you open your mouth about this, and what most of the people that say that about me don't realise is that my kids are part Māori. So, it doesn't even make sense. It's like in the space that I'm normally in with the trans stuff is they call you a homophobe. It's like, no, well, I've got homosexual friends and family, so I'm not that. So, and this is kind of where the crux of it is that people need to, and maybe even get offline, but online, and particularly I'm like, I was offline. I came offline in 2021 and I got back on to help. But particularly Facebook, you get swarmed. I had one post where I questioned something about where money was spent that went to a Māori organisation, and I was swarmed, and I had 90,000 people hit the post. So they actually have a tactical strategy to shut us down and hate us and label us, and the courage needs to come from people like you who have a space publicly to be able to say what you need to say, and people need to get behind and support you. The law is saying, the human rights, and even in the International Declaration of Rights, we have freedom of belief, freedom of expression, and also parents are the primary educators of their child, and they are responsible for choosing their child's education, which means if they don't want their child to do a prayer in a language or in a belief system that they don't believe in, how does the New Zealand government allow this to happen? Has to be our question.
I totally agree.
So with the 5 prayers a day that's happening in the council, are there any other councillors that are kicking off about this or questioning it? Or are you the only one in your council?
There's another councillor who's an atheist, and he also just stands there and he won't participate in the waiata or the karakia. And I mean, he wouldn't. If it was a Christian prayer, he probably wouldn't. No, he wouldn't. He doesn't want to, but he's being pressured to stand and to take part and to show respect.
Mm.
I mean, should we be showing respect? I don't know. I guess that's what the bottom line is for me. If Christ was there present, what would he do? He wouldn't partake in prayers to foreign gods. I can tell you that right now.
No. And like you say, it's been a really slow drip. I mean, when I was at school, we had Māori Language Week and we did bits and pieces, and I participated in all that. I raised my kids in it. It was all fine to a point. Like, we're told that it's part of our history and it's part of our culture. And so we're fine about it to a point. But at the point at which it overtakes, and we must, I actually was stopped in the street a couple of months ago in the South Island by a mum, and she knew my work from Let Kids Be Kids, which mostly we talk about the gender ideology and the sexualisation of children in school. And she said to me, and she's got primary school children, that the number one issue that she had right now is this issue that we're here talking about. Now, she was an immigrant and she married a New Zealander who is a white New Zealander who's 7 generations in. So she doesn't want her children, it's got nothing to do with her children, the Māori culture, the Māori language. She respects it, but she's really frightened by it because she wants her children to be bilingual with her mother tongue and English and learn about their dad's history of New Zealand, which didn't have anything really much to do with the Māori. There weren't any in that area. So I get more and more parents really concerned about it. What we need to do as parents and as members of the public is actually work together to try and figure out what we've got on our side around this, because it's clear what's going on. I mean, when the Minister of Education announced that they were removing some stuff about Te Tiriti in the Education and Training Act, the kickback that actually came from the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions all lobbied, and the very far left and, extremists, I would say. They basically are activist groups bullying the schools, so it's not parent-led at all. It is institutional-led through the unions and through the activist groups. That's what I'm seeing. Is that what you have come to?
Well, I look back at the 90s and the 80s when we grew up, and what society was like then. Well, I was in the police force. My best mate, a lot of my best mates were Maori cops. We were all very centrist. We went left. We went right. We just all got on. We were basically colourblind. It didn't matter what colour you were, what race you are. We just all got on, had a drink together and enjoyed life together. We played hard. We worked hard. And all of a sudden, in the last 10 years, the extreme left has, come out. And of course, that's created an extreme right. I don't think we had either of those in the 90s. And I mean, how cool would it be to go back to those dates? Okay, perhaps there wasn't as much culture, but I mean, we still sang Māori songs in schools, and we learned about the Māori, the Māori gods through legends, just like we do with the Greek mythology. I mean, that was interesting. I mean, nothing wrong with learning about culture, but you've got to have freedom of choice. You can't impose stuff on people that don't want it.
No, 100% you can't. And I think what the craziest thing about this to me is that it's going to backfire on them. People who were like us, like you said in the past, fairly, accepting of it. We're happy to have it as part of our language. I mean, I used to do my pepeha at the beginning of when I was public speaking. I love the way that the Māori introduce themselves by their place, their standing place in their river and their mountain. So I would take that on, and I was actually trained to do that, and so I wasn't virtue signalling. I understood that was respectful. I won't do that anymore because what I've realised it's done is it's watered down my own culture. It's not my culture. I'm not Māori. I'm not Māori blood. I'm English Irish. Born in New Zealand. But we are not allowed to be proud of that. And the crazy thing is that all the Māori people or also have the same blood as us. They're also English, Irish, Scottish, Danish.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's all that? So people know it doesn't make sense. So what advice have you got for people in council or in workplaces or in schools who are facing the same things?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. I mean, I'm like yourself. I mean, in 1993, I was a new policeman in Huntly. It was my first year in the police, and we came across a grisly homicide, and a Māori fella had killed his wife with an axe, chopped the head off. It was pretty nasty. And I was the only cop there, and the Te Karari News came down and says, "Hey, we know that one of your cops speaks fluent te reo," which is my sergeant. And so we'd love to have him speak to, the Māori News, Te Karari. And I said, "Look, he's not here, but I can do it. If you write it down, I will speak it. I mean, I can speak it. I just don't know it. Like, I mean, if you write it down, I'll be able to speak it." And now I can actually show you. I'll flick you the video. But for all these people that think I'm a big racist, I mean, I bend over backwards for the culture and help people out, and I'm happy to do that. But I don't know if I would now. It's just, the pushback. And that's the real shame. Is that a lot of centrist people like me are getting pushed to the right, and this is why parties like New Zealand First are a voice. Like, they're really the anti-woke, and, I've joined New Zealand First as a result since the flag issue. I mean, they're really standing up, and the silent majority, they're starting to wake up, I think, in New Zealand, because New Zealand are very, "Oh, well, she'll be right, and let's not rock the boat," and that's what the majority of councillors like. It's like, let them have their say, and we'll just carry on. But they're not standing. Sometimes you've got to stand up for your own morals. You can't just let people trample all over your beliefs for the sake of their beliefs. It needs to be, balance, and I think people need to stand up a bit more. I mean, look at the Māori wards. So they were voted out in Hastings 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I don't know if they would have been. Like, people were a lot more accepting, but people were just, they're getting sick of it. They're sick of the co-governance. They're sick of stuff being imposed on. They want democracy and freedom. And I guess that's what I'm really standing for, is freedom and democracy. And that's probably my biggest mantra. And it never used to be. It was all about rates and cost of living. So I think people just need to stand up and wake up.
Yeah, and speak up and actually bring the evidence. And this is the thing, I think, what they're driving us to. I mean, you've probably heard the saying, you put 100 red ants and 100 black ants in a jar and they're fine. And then you shake the jar and they start killing each other and people ask, who started it first? And the answer is the person who shook the jar. So this is being done to us. You know, the Māori activists that are out there pushing what they're pushing, this has been done to them in order to inflame a situation where there's two sides, and when us people are divided, they get to, it's not divide and conquer, it's divide and rule. They get to rule because they get to impose more laws and restrictions on us because they think that we can't behave like adults and actually all get along. Or we all know we get along. It's like when they brought the word inclusion into the education system, you know, and I talked to teachers that were there when that happened, and they said they didn't need to start imposing on us to teach the children about inclusion. We have a multicultural society and all the kids get along. Inclusion is just what we do. As soon as you start writing it into law and policy, then you're actually creating more division, which is exactly what they've done. And I just want people to get smarter as to how they articulate the issue that's going on. Like, not racist slurs. We don't need racist slurs. We don't need angry kickbacks. We need intelligence. We need to go back to policy, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think I found it interesting when I went to Australia. I don't know, you wouldn't know, but in 2012, I left the New Zealand police and I joined the Australian police, and we worked up in Darwin. Yeah, the attitude towards the Aborigines, they were the black fellas, we were the white fellas, and that's their terms, not ours. But the attitudes towards and the racism over there was quite a lot worse. And I didn't realise how lucky and fortunate we were in New Zealand. I mean, the relationships with Māori and Europeans and the rest of our cultures was amazing. And to go over there and see the way the Aborigines were treated, again, it was woke driven, because what happened is the stolen generation in Australia came out. And so if you drive past in a patrol car and see two drunk Aboriginal couple with a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old playing on the edge of the road, I said to them offside, we need to stop and rescue these children. They need help because their parents are unconscious drunk. Oh, no, you don't touch them. They're full-blood Aborigines. If we touch their kids, then we're stolen generation. So the pendulum over there is swung. They're so scared to do anything. They're scared to do the right thing. It's just sad.
That's probably not too far from the truth of what's going on here in New Zealand, because we all know that there's a big problem with child sexual abuse, incest. I've done an interview with a Māori woman who was, who exposed that in her family. We know that there's problems with, with the care of children, with the murdering of children, and we know that it's racially swayed. Like, that's common sense, that's in the news, that's not racist to say that, and yet we're not allowed to say anything about it. And are we allowed to help with the systems that we have, with the, with the English or New Zealand systems that we have? Is it able to help them? Not if it's wrapped around ideological policy. So we do need big reform. It's very frustrating for people, but really, I go back to doing kind of what you do, which is you go out into the public space and you state the truth and you take the hits, because lobbying to policy takes a long time. Getting on side with the right people and actually helping them to understand the size of the problem, like this comes down through UNDRIP, it comes down through United Nations, it comes down through all of this policy, where we didn't have such a bad problem. Like you said, the Māori were actually treated okay here, and we were integrating. Maybe I won't talk about my understanding of the tiriti because I'm not a scholar in it, but it's being misused and it's being, misrepresented to the point where it is segregating society when the intention of it was not to do that at all, I don't believe.
Well, all you have to do is look at the original, the last English draft from February the 4th, 1840, 2 days before the treaty was written. Everyone forgets about that the treaty started off in English. For some reason, everyone thinks it started off in Te Tiriti. It was written by Henry Williams, who'd spent 17 years living with Māori. He knew te reo better than most Māori. He became an expert, and so his job was to translate the last English draft, and it was so clear. It was a conduit to be able to protect their land, to sell their land to the Crown so it didn't get flogged, gave them British citizenship in lieu of sovereignty, and now they're trying to reinterpret these words. These words were basically invented by Henry Williams and co. for the Māori so they could understand, because they had come from a very basic civilization without any written language, so he had to help them get to that stage. Like, the treaty's our friend. Like, what was written on the treaty gave everyone equal rights. It was just unheard of around the world in colonial times. Like, we just don't know how lucky we are. I mean, we all came away with British citizenship, now New Zealand citizenship, one people, one rule for all. And yes, there were some injustices, and they've sorted most of that out now. But, I don't know why we can't just be grateful for what we've got. Like, we have a great country.
How big of a role do you think the Waitangi Tribunal has played in this, being that it's been going for 50 years
steering.
and we're more divided than ever?
Yeah, that's the worst thing we ever did. That was, they reinvented all the words, retranslated it. They weren't there in 1840. They had no idea what the translation was or what the chiefs were saying. I mean, Colenso was there, he recorded what they were saying. They knew all about the sovereignty and they were exceeding it, but they needed it. They needed a father figure. They demanded a father. They did not want the governor to leave. The debate was so clear. And people forget. People don't know. That's the problem. There's just so much ignorance in this country. It's not funny.
Well, when you say people forget, I was not born when the Waitangi Tribunal was formed, and so my realization, becoming an adult in this space and seeing the difference in the education system and everything, is that the older people that were around that understand what that was need to help us, and we need to do some research into deprogramming ourselves from being shamed for who we are. All this anti-colonial rhetoric. It's like, I'm not a colonialist. I'm a white woman that was born here. It's a rubbish language, and I just think that people, the more that they try and fix the ills of past generations, the more that it's actually opened up the can of worms. It just needs to stop.
I just need to move forward together and look forward instead of backwards all the time. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's really great to chat to you, Steve. And where can people find you if they want to check out what you're posting and speaking up about?
Just Steve Gibson on Facebook. Everyone seems to find me.
Okay, cool. So you're just on Facebook. Well, well done for being brave enough to speak up. And I think it's really important to showcase everybody who is, because we just need everybody to. I mean, I say, we put tools in your hands to use and share, but you can speak up too.
Lovely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks very much.
Really good. Thanks, Steve.
Bye.